One Punch Man has been living in the shadow for quite some time, and the reason I think that's the case is because of Atlas being a tad awkward to build properly to play smooth. Many Warframes work just fine with 4 to 6 mods, but with Atlas you always feel like you're missing one slot. I started using Atlas more when Liches came about, but with the introduction of Steelpath he's one of my go-to frames to deal with Steelpath alerts. He's 100% invulnerable when casting Landslide, which means that you can bully the living hell out of Acolytes, who are otherwise pretty dangerous when you get into their melee range. Atlas can be fun and very strong, mostly thanks to his first ability, Landslide. It scales with your melee build, so you can make quite a busted build for it. On the paper, his Landslide has 5% critical chance and 5% status chance, and 100% of his damage is impact. And that might seem bad. Damage is high though, so even if you build it just for raw damage, it can still be strong. However, I had something else in mind. Arcane Avenger stacks with Landslide, so does Cat's Eye from a Durza Kabot. Atlas is a tanky lad, so he can make Avenger work 24/7. That allows for much stronger melee build that affects the Landslide with crits that send damage through the roof. Status is still a no-go, so bring something that can aid you with status if you want to scale Atlas further. Melee combo as well as internal combo are additional damage multipliers affecting his first ability. There's also an augment for his passive ability that doubles the damage, so total damage is big number. I find that without Streamline, energy management can be an issue on Atlas. His first ability does not cost much, but for a passive augment to work, you need to use his third ability, which costs probably 3 times more than it should. And that's where one of the pitfalls of Atlas lies. Another pitfall is the fact that you gain rubble only if your health is full. That's so odd considering that Atlas is a brawling frame, so it's hard to count on it. Without Arcane Grace, I do not think you can even play around rubble reliably, and that's an issue in my eyes because Grace is a legendary arcane with very low drop chance. I'm just not a fan of requiring to use the rarest and strongest stuff just to make things work. But I am a fan of Atlas because he can be strong. With 1500 rubble, his total armor equates to about 90% damage reduction. With good melee build, high combo count, and his passive augment, he can landslide his way through Steelpath Endurance like it's nothing. His fourth ability is utterly useless. 100 energy for limited time specters that do no damage but look cool as big bounces running around. Not sure how that compares to Wukong's 25 energy for infinite duration specter, that's the strongest specter in the game by the way, but here we are. Wukong is busted to be fair, but Rumbles need to scale somehow, be it rubble, combo, stat stick, or any mix of those. Since you've got Arcane Avenger and Cat's Eye on one build, why not force crits on primary and secondary weapons as well? For me, choice is Exergis. 8% base critical chance, it was never supposed to crit, but with Atlas it's even more of a beast than it otherwise is. For secondary weapons, I'm swapping some stuff around. I like using Twin Roga with him for Sisters and Liches, cause it one-shots them regardless of their level. Weapons that don't have high critical chance usually have very high damage per shot, so forcing those critical hits out of them can result in seeing some silly damage numbers. For a melee build, it's all about landslide, so damage, critical damage, elemental, and combo. I went with corrosive damage because of its damage modifier against Grineer armor. Atlas will not hit a status all that often anyway. Primed heavy trauma. This is likely the only place where you'd use this because Atlas landslide damages 100% impact. I'm currently messing around with the augment for his third ability instead of range, but it's odd. We'll see what stays in there. 3 Umbro mods are the meat and potatoes of your average Atlas build. Adaptation is there to help as well. I dumped his Rumbler's ability as they're useless AF and I went with Eclipse, but there are a couple good options to helmet your Atlas. Streamline has to be in your build, so does Hunter Adrenaline. I guess if you ditch Rubble Heap you can fit full build, but that augment is so potent on endurance runs. So there are choices to be made with that build. I still feel like DE could reduce energy cost of his third ability and his fourth ability, and make Rumblers anywhere near good. Also, making Rubble add armor always and only refill health if needed might be a good step to not be required to run Arcane Grace. But those are just some ideas and empty hopes, cause chances are nothing will happen even if most of what Atlas needs is just few value changes. Drawback of Landslide is no status, no bleed, so my Xerxes is always there with Atlas to give some viral status to enemies that need few punches. Once enemies escalate to very high armor values, it's where a Landslide falls off, but even after an hour of Steel Path endurance I haven't seen those. Meanwhile, Atlas can be more than good enough and he has a spot. Like I mentioned, he's probably S-tier Wolframe to deal with Steel Path alerts that are not defense related, just because he has such an easy time dealing with Acolytes and he's more than tanky enough to not care for those enemies shooting him. Hope you like this build and I hope you like this video. Check me out on Twitch and I'll see you in the next one.